Continue inshallah today with the Seerah Halaqah from where we left off last week. I want to find a cozy spot and sit down and enjoy the story inshallah. So I'm going to do a quick recap of the events of the last maybe two halaqat or three. Just a quick kind of reminder of where we are, because we've been talking about the Treaty of Alhudaybiyah for the last maybe 2 weeks, and it's really important to kind of understand this part of his life, alayhi salatu wassalam, because it's one thing to see how someone behaves when they are being oppressed or mistreated. That's one thing. It's another thing to see how that same person behaves when they're on top. So there's two moments in a person's life that that you're going to want to see, or you want to know how they are. Also about yourself. Like if you want to know yourself, there are two moments that are important. When things are really bad, he's like, look, and when you're at the lowest point, and then when you're at the top of the mountain at the highest point. Those two extremes tell your story. Everything in between is a variable. Like it happens, it changes. But really, the way we know ourselves and we know each others is look at them when they're at their worst, and then look at them when they're at their best. And if they change at either of those points, then their ethics are not consistent, and there's a lack of realism. Like they're not the real deal. There's something missing. They have to go back and life is a very harsh teacher. It will throw you a lot of curveballs, and you'll be really low and really high many times in your life. So it's okay if early on, at some point, you find yourself, when I was my last low point, I didn't really behave the way I think I should have. That's okay, because you learn from that. And if you're if you peaked at one moment in your life before and you didn't behave the way you think you should have behaved, that's okay as well. It's all learning points for you, inshallah, to move forward and actually get it right. But when you look at the Prophet ﷺ in his life, from his prophecy, he had low points. His low points, like the day of Ta'if and after the battle of Uhud and during the years of oppression and persecution, these were low points. The Prophet ﷺ was in need, socially and financially and politically and personally. He was struggling. So when you look at his character then, ﷺ, impeccable. ﷺ continued to carry the highest of ethics through all of that. And so did the Sahaba and the companions who stood by him. But now we get to see the Prophet ﷺ when things are working out. So what happens? You can be all nice and tame and easygoing when things are not going well for you, when you're down at the foot of the hill. You can be all nice, but then when you're on top, the fangs come out. And suddenly you become vicious. No. The Prophet ﷺ, when he was on top, he continued ﷺ to behave the same way, which is what you learn from the story of Alhudaybiyah. Because he had the ability to put together an army and charge south and basically just completely run through Quraysh. He could have steamrolled them easily, no problem. He didn't need to go for Umrah. He didn't need to corner them and try and force their hand for a treaty. He didn't need to do that. He could have easily just went for revenge. He could have went for vengeance, and there would be no reason for us to have anything wrong, hold any grudge against that. Because alayhi salatu would be basically standing for the many Muslims that Quraysh murdered ruthlessly and brutally and in cold blood over the years before, throughout the years before that. But he didn't, alayhi salatu wasalam. Which is the whole point that you have to learn. He didn't. And the Quran did not encourage him to. And the Quran was actually encouraging him to do exactly what he did. So once he knew that he had the upper hand, alayhi salatu wasalam, he was thinking, how do I force Quraysh's hand? How do I get Quraysh to stop scaring other tribes from entering into treaties with me, offering alliance, or listening to Islam? Because there were three things that he was looking for. He wanted to be able to speak about Islam freely without anyone being afraid from Quraysh. So how does he force Quraysh's hand to do that? So he was thinking for a long time, and then he saw in his dream that they were going to Umrah. And once he saw that in his dream, he was like, yes, that's it. It's Umrah. It was right in front of me the whole time. I didn't see it. It's Umrah. If I can make it with the Muslims, and so he went with around 1,400 people, as I told you in the story. If I can just make it right in front of Mecca, in my ihram, dressed in the way that you're dressed for Umrah, then Quraysh has one of three options. Either they let me in for Umrah, and then all of Arabia sees that I entered Mecca, I performed Umrah, everything is good, people won't be afraid into entering treaties with me or alliances or accepting Islam, it'll be safe. Or they send me back. And if they send me back, they lose all credibility throughout Arabia. No one cares about them anymore. So I get what I want and people will listen to me too. Or we sign a treaty. Some truce, there is no war. And if I can get a truce, then that's just as good because now people will listen to me. So it's a win, win, or win, regardless of what happens. The only thing that could go wrong is that if Quraysh finds out that I'm going for Umrah and they intercept me somewhere in the middle of the desert and there's a war and then I lose. His goal was to make it to Mecca as quickly as humanly possible. So he put a lot of effort into the intelligence piece of this, making sure that they swept the road back and forth, making sure that Quraysh did not have a lot of people who were able to figure these things out. And he took 1,400 people, Muslim and non-Muslim from Medina, and they wore the ihram and they took the hadi, they took the sheep, and they went down for Umrah. Quraysh found out anyways that he was coming, so they sent Khalid ibn al-Walid with a small army to intercept him. Alayhi salatu wasalam was ready for that. When he found out that Khalid was close enough, they went and took a detour. They took another route. They went through the mountains, which is impossible to do. It's very difficult, but he went there anyway. By the time Khalid ibn al-Walid figured out that he's no longer going to intercept the Muslims because they went from a different route, he had already arrived, alayhi salatu wasalam, right in front of Mecca. So it was too late. He came, actually, the narration said that he was charging from the north, hoping to catch up with the Muslims, but by the time he got there, they were already in front of the Haram. And the Arab tribes already saw that they're wearing ihram. He couldn't do it. He couldn't touch them. So he had to go back into Mecca with a failure of a mission. The Prophet ﷺ would go and camp in an area right outside of the Haram, right outside of the Holy Land, right, just right outside of the Haram, called Alhudaybiyah, which is why this treaty is called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. And he would stay there. And the political maneuvering would begin, which is what I talk to you about over the last couple of weeks. Where alayhi salatu would send someone in with a message, they would send someone out with a message, would go back and forth. Quraysh would end up sending 2 or 3 people to threaten him, and he would send them back saying, I'm not here for war, I'm here for Umrah. Why is it that you can't continue to fight? And then they would try in the middle of it all to send a few people to raid them at night to see if they can provoke a fight. Because all Quraysh has to do is to prove or get out propaganda that Muhammad brought people armed to fight in Mecca, and that will ruin his reputation. So they would send a couple of hooligans at night, 40 people, to try and provoke a fight. The Prophet ﷺ was ready for it. He knew exactly that they were going to try that at some point. The moment they tried, he captured them, tied them up, sent them alive back into Mecca again with the same message. I'm not here to war for a war. I'm here. I want to sort this out. So after multiple attempts from Quraysh to provoke a fight or to turn this into violence, the Prophet ﷺ, they finally, once he sent Uthman ibn Affan into Mecca to negotiate with them, they sent out a rumor saying that they killed Uthman. The Prophet ﷺ is very easygoing, and he's very lenient until there's treason, until there's betrayal, until you murder someone ruthlessly in cold blood, until you do it in a way where you're breaking a basic human covenant, which is you don't kill the messenger. We're going to see that again, by the way. We're going to see that again in a couple of weeks in the Halaqah. Others do it again. So once they did that, once they sent out that we killed Uthman, who was sent in only to negotiate and talk to them about how to resolve the issue, he gathered the Sahaba under the tree. And they all gave their covenant, they gave their word to fight with him till the end. Once Quraysh heard that he actually did that, and that the Sahaba all they pledged with him that they would do that, Quraysh got scared. Because they know they couldn't stand to fight. So they sent out Suhail ibn Amr, the guy who actually was ready to write the treaty. So he'd come to the Prophet the first thing he would tell him is, Ya Muhammad, before we even talk about a treaty, you're going to go back from where you came. You're not going for Umrah this year. Before we even consider signing anything, the first thing that you need to say yes to before I even start talking to you is that you will all go back from where you're not entering Mecca this year. The Prophet ﷺ, in an anticipated moment where the drums are and everyone's waiting, because the Sahaba are like, no, he said he saw it in a dream. He's Rasulullah. When he sees it in a dream, that means it's going to happen. So obviously he's going to say no, and we're going to go for Umrah. So the Sahaba are standing there in their ihram. Yeah, of course that's not going to work. And he says yes, alayhi salatu wasalam. And there's like this moment amongst the Sahaba. What? Did he actually say that? We're not going Umrah? And then they start, and that's where it begins. That's where you can hear in the background, you can hear the Sahaba, you can hear people talk. You know when people start talking and chatting, you can't get anyone to quiet down. So everyone's talking, even though that was not the norm. The Sahaba would always sit down quietly when the Prophet ﷺ was there talking. But everyone was talking, and then people were leaving and going and telling people outside, so the noise was even getting louder and louder. We're not doing Umrah this year. Apparently he said it's okay, we're not doing Umrah this year. And then they go through the treaty. The treaty is it's unfair. You're going to have to work this on because it's not listening to me. The treaty is extremely unfair. Every aspect of the treaty was totally and completely unfair. And I went through this last time. You go back, no Umrah. Next year you come back. You get 3 days in Mecca. That's it. Not an hour more. You come in only with swords. You leave them outside. You're not allowed to bring an army with you. Anyone who comes to Mecca from Medina, leaving Islam, we hold on to them. Anyone who comes to you from Mecca, you send them back. They don't get to stay with you. You're not allowed to actually, someone who's, imagine this, like a free-willed person leaves Mecca, goes to Medina, accepting Islam, the Prophet can't allow them to stay. He has to send them away. Right? And he says, yes, no problem, yes, no problem. Why? Because some people have long-term vision. People who have that broad mindset, are able to see things, people that are able to zoom out and see the bigger picture, they're very rare in this world. But those who can do that know that it's not worth stopping at details that don't matter. It's just not worth it. He was looking for this over here. 10 years of truce. The last article of this treaty. 10 years, we stop fighting. Anyone who wants to enter the alliance of Quraysh can enter, and anyone who wants to enter the allegiance or alliance with Muhammad can enter, meaning whoever wants to accept Islam can go ahead and do that. And for 10 years, no more war. We don't fight for 10 years. So the Prophet ﷺ is putting down these treaties. He accepted all of the other completely unfair articles. He just asked for that one. They said yes. So he's ready, he's very excited. You can see he's excited. All right, let's sign it. Let's write it and sign it. So they start writing. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Suhail ibn Amr says, nope. If I knew ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, I wouldn't be having this, right? Bismika Allahum, what we're used to. So he tells Ali ibn Abi Talib, go ahead, delete it, write Bismika Allahum. So Ali, at that point, is boiling. You could see like there's steam coming from his head. He's not doing Umrah. Everything about the treaty that he is witnessing is unfair. Everything is written so far is completely unfair. He is not happy with any of it. But he's sitting there. It's Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam speaking. He can't say anything. This is the Prophet. He has to be quiet. So he's sitting there. He's completely unhappy with everything. So he writes Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This guy says, no, write Bismika Allahum. I don't know ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So he's like, nope, not doing it. It's Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And if you don't like it, you can get it. The Prophet was like, no. Ali, calm down. Write Bismika Allahum. Fine. So he deletes it. He writes Bismika Allahum. Fine, whatever. هذا ما اتفق عليه سهيل بن عمرو ورسول الله محمد. This is what Suhail ibn Amr and the Prophet Muhammad has agreed to. So Suhail ibn Amr is like, what is this, Muhammad Rasulullah? If I knew you were Rasulullah, I wouldn't be out here negotiating with you. Write your name and the name of your father, please. And Ali ibn Talib throws the pen. Nope, it's Muhammad Rasulullah. I am not changing a word of it. And the Prophet is like, no, Ali, just Muhammad ibn, that's my name, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Nope, it's Muhammad Rasulullah. And if he doesn't like it's Ya Ali, show me where it is. Where is it? Because the Prophet didn't read. So where is it? So he points it out for him. So the Prophet deletes it himself. And he writes Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Why? Again, once they were done, once they wrote the treaty and they signed it, the narrations tell us the Prophet had this big smile on his face. The happiest they had seen him in the last 10 years. Because he got what he wanted. He knew, just give me peace. By the way, the treaty was 10 years. How long do you think the truce went on for? Not even 2 years. Not even 2. Quraysh had to break it because it was getting out of hand. Because the diagram, like the numbers, the Muslim population number, kind of just graveled around really slowly, just kind of moving slowly, 100, 200, then 300, then 600, then 1,500, then maybe 2,000 every couple of years going up. The graph is just moving like this, and then if you look at it, it just skyrockets in a year. It just goes like this. It's almost like parallel to the, and if you look at the graph, you're like, what happened here? This is what happened here. What happened here is Hudaybiyah. Because the moment people weren't under the stress of being killed or losing their status or being for accepting Islam, and people had the ability, the Prophet ﷺ had the ability to go and explain what Tawheed actually is, explain the simplicity of this faith. It's simple. Islam is an extremely simple deen. There's nothing complicated about it. It's very straightforward, and it's hard for you to understand the fundamental principles and not embrace it. Like there's nothing that's out of this world. You're not required to believe in anything that's outside of what is acceptable logically and rationally. So once he did that, the numbers skyrocketed within 2 years. So Quraysh is like, no, too many people accepting Islam. We have to end this truce and go back to war again. So I'll tell you that story, inshallah, very soon when it comes. He signs the treaty. The Prophet ﷺ was the happiest they've seen him in a long time. and the Sahaba are the most angry they've ever been in their lives. It's a complete paradox different. The Prophet is the happiest, the Sahaba are boiling. There are people who are literally going around rallying others. Umar al-Khattab, right after this treaty, he speaks to the Prophet. He said, Ya Rasulullah, are we not the Muslims? He says, yes, of course we are. Alasna al-haq, are we not the people who are standing by righteousness? Yes. Alaysu al-mushrikeen, are they not the disbelievers? Yes. Alaysu al-batil, aren't they what they're saying is incorrect? Yes. Alama nu'ti daniyata fi dinina, then why are you accepting this completely unfair treaty, Ya Rasulullah? فقال يا عمر أنا رسول الله. Ya Umar, I'm the Prophet of Allah. Isma, just listen. And so Umar al-Khattab wouldn't dare say. So he gets up, he goes to Abu Bakr, says the same thing. Abu Bakr, are we not? Are they not? Are we not? Are they not? Why are we doing this? Why are we accepting this completely unfair treaty? فقال يا عمر إلزم غرزه. It's my favorite quote of this whole. I told it last time, and I'll tell it again, just because I think it's totally worth it. He said إلزم غرزه, right? It's not just about walking in his footsteps. Al-gharz is where the cane that you carry goes into the ground. Now, don't only put your feet in the exact footsteps that he put his feet in. Your cane, stick it exactly where he stuck it, alayhi salatu wasalam. Walk exactly the way he's walking. Do exactly like he did it. What are you objecting to? Umar goes to Uthman, goes to Ali. He's rallying people. No one's accepting. Other people are very upset, by the way, and I'll show you in a moment. And the reason being is that it was unfair. It was an unfair treaty. But if you had zoomed out a little bit, you saw the bigger picture, then you knew. The Sahaba couldn't see it. What did the Sahaba see? They saw one thing. What did they want? It was one thing. It was only one thing. It was Umrah. They wanted Umrah. They were wearing the ihram. They hadn't seen the Kaaba in years. They wanted Umrah. And they were told, no, that's it. That's it. They cannot. It's just hard. It was hard. They learned from this, by the way. Like the whole point of me telling this story. The Sahaba, unlike certain people, they learned. They went through that experience. They saw how the Prophet ﷺ had that long-term vision, was able to zoom out and see the bigger picture and not get distracted by the simple stuff and focus on the goal, stay the course and go to where you're going. They learned that. That's why Islam spread everywhere. That's why everyone sitting here is sitting here. Because your background is probably not, most people here don't come from Quraysh. Maybe there's a couple of you, but the majority of people don't come from Quraysh. Most of you come from other parts of the world, but you come from those parts of the world because the Prophet ﷺ taught them how to focus on the bigger picture, because they learned to do that after he died, ﷺ. And this story was the biggest lesson that they ever learned. So they would continue to do this. And Umar al-Khattab would come back to the Prophet ﷺ after losing hope and say, Ya Rasulullah, you said that you saw in your dream that we're going to Umrah. So what? فَقَالَ يَا عُمَرْ أَخْبَرْتُكَ أَنَّهُ يَكُونُ هَذَا الْعَامِ. Did I ever tell you, Ya Umar, that was going to happen this year? Did I tell you it was going to happen this year? So Umar was like, No, you didn't. All right then. He calmed down. In the midst of all this, I told you the story of Abu Jandal. As the Prophet ﷺ is signing the treaty, just as they're signing it, a man walks in, running into the tent, saying, Ya Rasulullah, ana fi jiwarik, I ask you for protection. They are trying to force me out of my faith. His name is Abu Jandal. Just to make this story more dramatic, Abu Jandal happened to be the son of Suhail ibn Amr, the guy who's signing the other part of the treaty, the guy who's representing Quraysh signing the treaty. So the Prophet ﷺ said, we haven't signed it yet. You haven't signed it yet, you're welcome to come. So I said, nope. Prove that you're honest about all of this and truthful, send him back. That's what we agreed to, send him back. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Suhail, we haven't signed it yet. Let him through. Just one person, just let him through. Nope. Prove it. فقال يا سهيل أجزه لي. Give him to me. Just as a personal favor. Allow Abu Jandal to, nope. Suhail would say later that I've never forgiven myself for how I treated the Prophet ﷺ that day. As he asked me time and time again, allow this one person through, and I didn't. So the Prophet ﷺ looked at Abu Jandal and told him, I've agreed to something. Muslims are people of their word. You agree to it, you stick to it. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ وَلَعَلَّ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَكَ مَخْرَجًا. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you a way out of this. Just be perseverant and stay. So Abu Jandal was sitting there, tied up. Now Umar al-Khattab was still rallying, so he'd come by and he'd stand by Abu Jandal. And he had his sword out, and he was like rocking his sword back and forth. He would say, إِن كَانَ أَحَدُنَا لَيَقْتُلُ أَبَاهُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Oh, the days when people would actually take out their own fathers for the sake of Allah. He's telling Abu Jandal to do it. So Abu Jandal understood. He looked up. said, Ya Umar, اقتله أنت. Do you do it? You have the sword. فقال ما كنت لأعصي رسول الله. I would never disobey the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. فقال أبو جندل ولا أنا. Neither would I. I would never disobey the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. So they didn't. They obviously didn't that day. On their way, let me see if I can figure out the timeline of what I'm going to do here. All right, let's go. We'll go back to the verses in a moment. Let me tell you this the rest of it, and then we'll go back to the verses inshallah in a moment. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu would, later on, of course, in his kind of his own reflection, would say, I have prepared a lot of salah and siyam and sadaqah for that day. Meaning I still continue to pray at night and give sadaqah and siyam, and my intention is Allah forgives me for what I did that day, for how upset I got and how much I rallied and how much I put up a little bit of a pushback to the Prophet ﷺ's decision. And when the verses that I'm going to go back to in a moment were revealed, and it said, إِنَّا فَتَحْنَا لَكَ فَتْحًا مُبِينًا. Indeed, we have granted you not a victory, but an opening that will grant you many victories to come. Umar said, Ya Rasulullah, أَفَتْحٌهُ. How is this a fath? How is it a fath? We didn't get to do Umrah. Next year we come back for 3 days only. We don't get to do this. People can't stay with us. They have to go back, but we can lose our Muslims to them, no problem. فَقَالَ نَعَمْ يَا عُمَرْ فَتْحٌ. It is a fath. You just don't see it yet. And then 2 years would go forward. 2 years. And the number of Muslims, as I explained, would skyrocket to the point where they outnumbered the Quraysh by far. Like it was insane. Like Muslims were winning the battles when they were outnumbered 1-4. Now the Muslims outnumbered the rest by 8-1 basically. So Umar al-Khattab, as he watched the armies before Fath walking in the tens of thousands, he would look at the Prophet ﷺ, he would say, هو فتح يا رسول الله. Indeed, it was a fath. رأيك دون رأيي يا رسول الله. You're the one who understands. You're the one who knows I don't know anything. You're the one who has the right opinions. I'm ignorant. I don't know what I was talking about. I didn't know what I was doing. But he learned. See, the funny thing is, have you ever studied Umar al-Khattab's life? You're only seeing this little snapshot of Umar. Do you know what Umar went on to do later? Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu basically established what the Muslim Khilafah would be for 1,000 years. He established it. He built what became the Muslim Caliphate, the Muslim Empire. Why? Because he learned. Again, I know I've said this before. Maybe I'm a broken record. I probably am. You have to learn from the lessons that are... There's no point of going through a difficulty or running into trouble if you don't learn anything from it. If you walk out with the exact same mentality, only to do the exact same thing you did before, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a systematic issue. If every time you fall down, you fall into a hole, you get up and you fall into the same hole later on, something similar, it means you didn't learn anything. The Sahaba learned. Like they would go through a problem, they would make a mistake, and then they would learn from it. And they wouldn't do it again. And that would stick with them to the rest of their lives. Umar al-Khattab learned from the Fath, from Hudaybiyah. He learned. Umar al-Khattab signed over 140 treaties as a Khalifa. Treaties that were also, in the way you look at it from afar, unfair, but they allowed the Muslims to exist, which is why I am Muslim today. I am Muslim today because I come from an area beside Damascus. As you know, the Prophet ﷺ did not make it that far. He was stuck between Medina and Mecca. That's as far as he went. But because the people who came later did not basically raid every single country they went to, making the people in those countries hate them, they actually signed treaties that allowed people to hold on to their faith and their wealth, with the one caveat of allowing Muslims to exist, allowing Muslims to talk about the deen. Today, I sit here as Muslim. You probably have a similar background too. And that's why we're Muslim. It's because they learn to focus on what matters. What matters is not the money, it's not the prestige, it's not the status, it's not proving that I have the upper hand. It's not entering because I came to Umrah today, I'm going to enter. I'm not going to be sent back with the shame. No, it doesn't matter. All that doesn't matter. Egos don't matter. If you could just learn that. Egos mean nothing. Swallow your ego. Get used to it. If it's too big, shrink it down so it's swallowable. Get rid of it because it doesn't mean anything. Focus on what actually matters for you in your life. Focus on what's going to take you far. Focus on what's going to allow you to grow and to become the person that you are destined by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to come. The Prophet ﷺ didn't have a problem. Yeah, we go back with no umrah. So what? We go back. Yeah, all Arabia sees it, we go back. It doesn't matter. I got 10 years of peace. And that he knew what mattered, alayhi salatu. He knew what mattered, what was going to make a difference. And they didn't. Let me tell you how upset they were. So he gathers the Muslim right at Hudaybiyah, and he tells them, we're going back. As we signed the treaty, we're going back. So everyone do tahallul from your ihram and slaughter your hadi. So It's a fiqhi issue, you don't have to understand. It's called ihsar. Ihsar is when you go for umrah or hajj and you're denied entry for whatever reason. So in that moment, if you're wearing your ihram, you have to end your ihram. How do you end it? You shave your head, right? You cut your hair. And that way you can go back to wearing your clothing. And then you have to slaughter a livestock and give the meat to the poor. You have to feed the poor from the livestock from sheep or cows or camels. So the Prophet ﷺ is like, all right, shave your heads and slaughter your hadi, and we're going to go back. Not one person did anything. So he says it again. احلقوا واذبحوا الهدي. Not one person. Everyone just looks down. They're not like being rude, they're just kind of looking around, acting like they're not, you know how it is in the classroom. Anyone want to answer the question? Everyone becomes very preoccupied with something else until the teacher is done. We're very good at that, especially if you've gone to school for a long time, mashallah. Some people are very good at even just keeping if there's like a pillar in the classroom, right? Just keeping something between the eyesight of the teacher and yourself. And they move, and you just move with it, just keeping them there, just keeping a nice, yeah, we're very good at these things. So he's giving the command, and everyone's finding something. اذبحوا احلقوا واذبحوا الهدي. Now shave your heads and slaughter the sheep. Not one person. Ajib. Never before, never again. This is the only time this ever happened. So he enters sallallahu alayhi wa sallam his tent. And he says, Ya Salama. His wife Salama was with him. Halaqah qawmuki. Your people are ruining their own lives. يَأْمُرُهُمْ نَبِيُّهُمْ وَيَعْصُونَ. Their prophet is commanding them clearly to do something and they are disobeying. فَقَالَتْ هَوِّنْ عَلَيْكَ. Take it easy, it's okay. إِنَّمَا أَحْزَنَهُمْ أَلَّا يَعْتَمِرُوا. They're just upset that they're not doing umrah. اخرج أنت فأحلق واذبح. Go out yourself, shave your head, slaughter your sheep, and they'll do the same. يقولون فكانت يعني أبرك الناس مشورة لقومها. She carried the highest barakah of a person giving consultation on the behalf of her people. Because she saved the day, radiallahu anha, with this perfect piece of advice. Just go out, do it yourself. Once you do it, physically, everyone will do it. So he goes out, alayhi salatu wasalam, he calls the barber, and the barber shaves his head, alayhi salatu wasalam, and he slaughters his sheep. And once the Sahaba saw that he did it, so it's over. There's no changing anyone's mind. يقولون فأخذ بعضهم يحلق بعض فرطا. And they started shaving their heads with anger. Like they're basically, and everyone was bleeding, and then they were slaughtering. They were all upset, but they did it anyways. رضي الله عنهم وارضاهم. And they slaughtered their sheep, and they shaved their heads, and they went back to Medina. On the way to Medina, this surah was revealed. So the surah that you see here, Surah Al-Fath, was revealed. إِنَّا فَتَحْنَا لَكَ فَتْحًا مُبِينًا. We have opened for you a clear opening. We have given you. And the Sahaba just couldn't understand it. Where's the opening? What is he talking about? We're back. We didn't even do Umrah. We're bald for nothing. We didn't even perform Umrah. Where's the Fatah here? This treaty, this unfair treaty that is just filled with injustice, filled with a lower hand of the Muslims, that we can't do this and we can't do that and we can't accept this and we can't receive that, and they get the upper hand in it all? Yes. Why? Because it brought peace. Because that was the goal. You want to see the Prophet ﷺ with the upper hand? He forced peace. He forced them to a treaty of peace. Even though it was unfair, he still forced their hand, ﷺ. Didn't have to, but he did anyways. Because that's the goal of this deen. The goal of it is to bring peace. It doesn't mean that you accept oppression. It doesn't mean that you stand by transgressors. It just means that as long as you have the ability to choose peace, you will continue to choose it. Because that's how Islam is present. That's how people actually learn to appreciate it. ليغفر لك الله ما تقدم من ذنبك وما تأخر ويتم نعمته عليك ويهديك صراطا مستقيما وينصرك الله نصرا عزيزا هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين. The verses will start talking about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of this action that the Prophet ﷺ did, he forgave all of his sins. And because the Muslims held on to their composure, well, they did a good enough job. They kind of got a little upset, but they didn't, there was no mutiny, they didn't break his word, alayhi salatu wasalam, they didn't fight back, they accepted it. He put the sakina in their hearts, لِيَزْدَادُوا إِيمَانًا مَعَ إِيمَانِهِمْ وَلِيُدْخِلَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي. And in the verses talk about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them reward and will have them enter paradise. He says here subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ إِذْ يُبَايِعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ. Sorry. فعلم ما في قلوبهم فأنزل السكينة عليهم وأثابهم فتحا قريبا. Indeed, Allah shows full satisfaction and happiness with the believers who stood under that tree and pledged their lives with you, accepting the fact that they may go into Mecca and die, but they did it anyways. Full satisfaction. That tree had to be removed. People would go and visit that tree more than they visited some parts of the haram. So the tree had to be removed so that people would stop going and visiting. Because the place itself was a place where the Prophet ﷺ shook the hands of the Muslims. And they went like this at the end. هَذِهِ لِعُثْمَانَ. This is for Uthman. They killed him, but this is for him. He would have stood by us as well. No war happened, but it was a moment of true sacrifice and true commitment. He says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the end of it, لَقَدْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ رَسُولَهُ الرُّؤْيَا بِالْحَقِّ لَتَدْخُلُنَّ الْمَسْجِدَ الْحَرَامِ. The verses would come and say, yes, the vision Muhammad saw, the vision the Prophet ﷺ saw in his dream is the truth. And yes, لَتَدْخُلُنَّ الْمَسْجِدَ الْحَرَامِ. You're going to enter the haram. Insha'Allah, with the will of Allah. Aminin, you're going to be safe. مُحَلِّقِينَ رُؤُوسَكُمْ وَمُقَصِّرِينَ لَا تَخَافُونَ. And you will shave your heads or just trim your hair. لَا تَخَافُونَ. You won't be in a state of fear at all. فَعَلِمَ مَا لَمْ تَعْلَمُوا. But he knew what you did not. But he knew that which you did not. You didn't know the value of peace, the value of freedom of thought and freedom of speech. You didn't understand it. You thought that the issue was all umrah, or the issue was upper hand, or the issue was status, or the issue was beating your opponent. It's not about beating your opponent. It's about if you can bring them close, one step closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what this is about. That is victory. Victory is bringing people closer to God, allowing yourself to come closer in the process of doing it. That's victory. فَعَلِمَ مَا لَمْ تَعْلَمُوا. He knew what you did not. فَجَعَلَ مِن دُونِ ذَلِكَ. So before that happened, before you're going to enter the haram and you're going to have your umrah, فَجَعَلَ مِن دُونِ ذَلِكَ. He made sure before that happened, فَتْحًا قَرِيبًا, a fath. He granted you this amazing victory just before you went for umrah. So the Sahaba they all calmed down. And they accepted what the Prophet ﷺ explained to them. The year after, just as promised, things happened obviously in the year between the two. So there are a few things that are going to happen within that year. I'll start telling you the story inshallah next week. But they would go the year after, and they would perform Umrat al-Qada. It's called Umrat al-Qada. And they would go, the Prophet ﷺ would take around 1,200 people, a little bit less than the first time around. And they would go in their ihram, they would take the hadi, and they would have their swords. They would arrive at Mecca as agreed, the time that they agreed upon, exactly a year later, they would arrive there. They would come out to meet the Prophet ﷺ on the outside. They would see they had swords. They say, Ya Muhammad, I thought you were someone who did not break their word. We agreed that you would enter Mecca without weapons. فقال عليه الصلاة والسلام, yes, I am a man of my word, and we're not going to enter with weapons. The weapons will stay outside. And he left عليه الصلاة والسلام a group of people, maybe like around 100 people, to guard the weapons, just in case Quraysh decided to break their covenant and do something. So they would enter Mecca, and because of the animosity, a lot of the people of Quraysh would leave Mecca and go and kind of stay in the mountains until he was finished his Umrah alayhi salatu wasalam. As they entered for Umrah, they would mock them. The people of Quraysh would mock the Prophet alayhi salam, the Muslims. Say, look, Humma Yathrib has made them so tired. See, Yathrib was a very difficult place to live. Medina at the time was a hard place to live. It had a lot of disease in it. The Sahaba were constantly throughout those 10 years quite ill, in and out of illness. So when they came for Umrah, you could see the Sahaba, they were all thinner than they were before they left a few years before. And they didn't look as well physically. They were much tired. So they started mocking them. Look what Yathrib did to them. So the Prophet ﷺ would say, رَحِمَ اللَّهُ امْرَأً أَرَاهُمْ مِنْ نَفْسِهِ قُوَّةً وَمِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ قُوَّةً. May Allah grant mercy to those who show them strength today. So the Prophet ﷺ did something called ittiba'. So when you go to Umrah, you'll do this. The first three circulations of the Kaaba, you'll do something called ittiba'. And ittiba' is where, the white piece of ihram that the men wear. So that white piece of ihram, on the right side, you put it under your armpit instead of over your shoulder, and then you throw it on the other. So you have your shoulder out. So the Sahaba would go and they would perform Umrah with their right shoulders out to show a little bit of muscle, if you understand what I'm saying, to kind of prove a little bit of strength. And they would perform the Umrah, by the way, walking in a military style. They would all be walking in a military style just to show some strength. And when they showed that, the Prophet ﷺ left it at a sunnah afterwards. They was asked, do we continue to do this? Because yes, you continue to do this forever. Meaning the first three circulations of every Umrah or every Hajj, you do it tiba', you take out, the men show their shoulders, and then you put it back in afterwards. The Prophet ﷺ refused for Muslims to allow themselves to be portrayed as weak. He refused for Muslims to allow to portray themselves as weak. No, we are not weak. We may be outnumbered. We may be outnumbered. We may accept a treaty that's unfair. We may step down and walk away and prefer peace over war. But we are not weak, and we are not scared. Understanding what I'm trying to say? There's a difference. There's a difference. Just because you're strong doesn't mean that you have to beat the person up. That's not, you're not strong. You're just a bully. I'm sorry, you're not strong. If you're strong, you would control yourself, knowing that your opponent is not a match to you, knowing that if you wanted, you could completely wipe the floor with this individual. Strength is actually holding that back. That's strength. Strength is not doing it. Strength is, it's a very important, this is what he taught alayhi salatu wasalam, but honestly, this is like universal ethic stuff. Like universally, this is known. If you are much stronger than your opponent, strength is not actually going and punishing them and teaching them a lesson physically. It's actually controlling yourself and not doing it. Show me that type of strength. That is strength that is rare in the world. Having that strength will get you very far in life. Beating people up is not, whatever. Okay, you have muscles, good for you. How long do you think muscles stick around for? Ever seen these guys who are 40 years later? What's left of them? Nothing. This is not but the strength, the inner strength will stay with you until your grave. The inner strength, the ability to control yourself and make the right decision, that will stay with you until the end of your life. Muscles come and go. Don't. The Prophet ﷺ wasn't about the blood, wasn't about the war. But he would refuse for Muslims to walk around showing themselves as weak or showing any signs of fear. No, we don't do that. We show our strength. We show our bravery. We show our strength, not to use it and bully others with it, but to prove that we're not doing what we're doing out of fear. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The funny thing, I'll tell you this aspect of the story that's interesting. So you know how Abu Jandal was taken back to Mecca, right? He wasn't allowed to go with the Prophet ﷺ. A month later, after the Prophet ﷺ would go to Medina, a man by the name of Abu Basir would come to the Prophet ﷺ leaving Mecca, saying, Ya Rasulullah, I'm coming to protect me. So the Prophet ﷺ said, no, I can't. I've signed the treaty. I can't protect you. You have to go back from where you came from. And you have to show perseverance and wait until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants you faraj out of this. So Abu Basir is like, Ya Rasulullah, I come to you and you're going to send me back. He told him, I'm a man of my word. This is what we agreed to. You know about it. You have to go back. So he was sent back to Mecca. The Prophet ﷺ gave him back to a small group of Meccans to be taken back. Abu Basir is like, you know what? He did his part, alayhi salatu wasalam, he did his part. I don't want to go back with you. So he fights back. He's a very skilled fighter. He fights back. He's able to set himself free, and he goes and he puts up a tent somewhere around the coast, close to where Jeddah is today, around that area. And he would send out to all of the people who accepted Islam, who can't go to Medina because Muhammad, the Prophet ﷺ, can't take them, come to me. So Abu Jandal broke loose in Mecca and went over to Abu Basir. And over 150 people went there. So what did they do? They went and they would cause difficulties and problems for the Quraysh caravans that would go back and forth from Damascus to Mecca. That's all they did. They just sat there and they harassed the caravans as they went back and forth. They harassed them so badly that Abu Sufyan actually went to Medina and said, Abu Qasim, you remember the part of the treaty where they can't come to you? We want to take it back. Let them come to you. Let them come to you. The Prophet ﷺ said, no, ana ala al-ahd. No, we agreed, we're going to, we stick to our agreement. No, it's okay, you can take them. No, I want to stick to the treaty. Until Abu Sufyan basically admitted that when he was asking he was just asking the Prophet, can you please ask these people to stop harassing our caravans? So the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, of course. So he brought Abu Basir. He sent Abu Basir a message. And he would say, when he first heard about Abu Basir, قال ويل أمه مسعر حرب لو كان معه أحد. What a strong fellow. If he's going to start like a problem for Quraysh, if anyone stands by him, he'll make a problem for them. And he was very impressed by Abu Basir. So he sends a letter to Abu Basir saying, Jazakallah khair, barakallah fi everything you've done. Come to Medina, come to me. They've changed the actual agreement, come to me. Unfortunately, Abu Basir would receive, by the time they received the letter, he died. And he was buried with the correspondence of the Prophet ﷺ in his grave. So they dafanuhu, they put him in his grave, and they put with him in his hand the correspondence of the Prophet ﷺ that said in it, that made dua for him in it. And Barakallah fiqh, this is, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you for what you've done. And he was buried, and then the rest of them came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua for Abu Basir and spoke of him quite highly. As they're entering from Umrah al-Qada, Abdullah ibn Rawaha, this is just an interesting piece that happened, would start singing out poetry. يعني خلوا بني الكفار في سبيله فإنه لا سبيل إلا سبيله. He would sing out poetry. I don't know the poetry, but he sings out the poetry. رضي الله عنه. He's singing out poetry, and Umar al-Khattab is like, poetry, either read Quran or be quiet. So he tells Abdullah ibn Rawaha to be quiet. So the Prophet ﷺ would say, دعه يا عمر, leave him. فوالله لكلامه أشد عليهم من نطع السهام. Leave him. What he is saying is bothering the enemy more than if he was reading Quran. What's interesting, the reason I bring these up every once in a while, is that you'll find, and let's count them out. The day he entered Medina, he entered with nasheed. When they built the masjid of the Prophet, they built it, they had nasheed. When they dug the trench, they dug it, and there was nasheed. And when they entered for Umrah, they entered and there was nasheed. The Prophet ﷺ's respect and valuing of art is something that should not go unnoticed within our deen. It's important. One of the surahs in the Quran is called the Shu'ara, the poets. That's what it's called. There is value to art that builds, art that is directed towards empowering people, enlightening them, and granting them courage and strength to do the right thing. There's a lot of value in that. We are now an ummah that is artless. We have no art attached to us. That is boring. By definition, it's boring. Kids don't like it. Kids look for art. They want it. They want something artistic to connect themselves to. Yes, the Quran is artistic in nature. That's why when you recite the Quran, there's beauty to it. It's not just the profound meanings of it. It's the way that it's going to be recited that is important, that has beauty to it. But an ummah, nation, requires its artists so that it has that output, that intellectual, artistic output that people can connect themselves to and relate to. And that somehow, over the last couple of decades, has completely been sucked out of this ummah. So we don't have it. So there's a lot of art out there, but none of it is worth your time. Every once in a while it's not a mistake, but every once in a while I just go and take a look at the top 10 Billboard songs in North America. And wallahi, as far as I remember when I was a kid, they didn't allow curse words in the song names. Like I remember, I don't know, I could be old school, but I remember that they didn't allow curse words or profanity in the titles of songs. Maybe somewhere in the middle of it, someone will blur out a word. But for the title of the song, to have a curse word in it and for it to be there, that's really weird. For that to be the case, that this is where we are right now. A song that is made out of maybe 4 words, 2 of them which are profanities, repeated many, many times. And this is like a number, this has like 500 million, khair inshallah. What's happened to the human mind? This is what we think is, this is beautiful, this is enjoyable. Ajibullah, that this is where we are. It's fine if people enjoy it for some twisted reason that I don't understand, whatever. But where's the alternative? Where's something that is meaningful, that is high quality, that is, like I enjoy certain types of nasheed because I grew up in a certain part of the world. If I get you to listen to any of it, you'll come close to vomiting. You don't enjoy it because it's not something you understand. But where's the alternative that is high quality, that actually works, that people can relate to and enjoy? Where is it? Where? Are you telling me that there's 2 billion Muslims on the planet? Not one of us has an artistic nerve inside of them? Not one? Not one person can write a decent song or compose something that is listenable? We all have to just steal rhythms from other songs, and those ones who just take a song and just rewrite the words, and no one wants to listen to that. Where's the actual output? I'm not artistic. I'm not. This is not what I know how to do. But I think we're saturated with the number of doctors and engineers that we have in this community. And if you are one, that's fine. Can we figure out if some of us can do something? Can some of us maybe get into script writing? Maybe into making documentaries or writing lyrics or doing something that actually has an effect on the khair that you can do with a little bit of an artistic approach to the life that you live in, the deen, the ethics. I don't even need something that is all Allah, Allah and Muhammad Rasulullah. I just need something that is decent. A piece of art that just teaches some decency. It teaches people to be caregivers, to be empathetic, to be generous, to be kind, to be self-analytic, to be self-critical. Just that, the basic stuff. That's very valuable. It's very reasonable. And we still don't have a lot of that. It's very, very, very little. We're not represented. We don't have the output. The Prophet ﷺ surrounded himself by 3 poets all his life. You had Hassan ibn Thabit, you had Abdullah ibn Rawaha, you had Ka'b ibn Malik. 3 of the best poets that lived at the time. And he gave them special attention. And honestly, and this is something that maybe some people won't like hearing, but I can easily argue with you and beat you in the argument. He gave them exceptions, meaning they would make mistakes and he would forgive them for them. They would make horrific mistakes and they would be forgiven for the mistakes they made because of the impact that they had, because they were able to produce something. Arabs didn't memorize the Quran. The Muslims did. 1,000 people memorized the Quran after the Prophet ﷺ died. That's how he preserved it. But the Arabs memorized the poetry of Hassan ibn Thabit. They memorized the words. They remembered these words. Till this day, طَلَعَ الْبَدْرُ عَلَيْنَا is sung all over the planet. These words stick with people. They stick with people. Even people who have no idea what they mean. Go to the subcontinent. Most people have no idea what طَلَعَ الْبَدْرُ عَلَيْنَا means. They sing it anyways. Because this stuff sticks with people. It means something. The culture, the poetry, that meant something. Today we need something similar. Something. Give me something to work with. You get asked, why are there youth in the masjid? Why do you think? You attract them with what? With what? Give me, what am I going to attract them with? You can only do so much with a fat guy and a Quran in his hand. Wallah, you can only get so much interest by doing that. But if you had art, or had some artistic output or some artistic venue for people to get into, then it's a different story. It's a different story. People are there will be again interest within the ummah to be in masajid and to learn their deen. And if you go back historically, the Muslims are extremely artistic all throughout history and every aspect of art. What are you talking? Painting, architect, song, poetry, it's all there. Just recently, we ran into a little bit of a hurdle and we got broken down. We don't do it well anymore. We're not doing it well anymore. I say if you're young and you're enthusiastic and you're intelligent, you have a little bit of an artistic chord in your voice or in your mind, run with it. Do something with it. Do something with it that can leave an impact on people that will live on. Wallahi, I could give 1,000,000 khutbahs. One good, well-written nasheed or song will go farther. We'll go way farther. It will spread Islam farther. And people will be interested in it. And I could spend the rest of my life standing up here, just running my mouth day and night, and maybe a couple of people will listen. But you do one act, one good piece of art will change the world. And orators like myself will speak until they're blue in the face and very little will happen. So just think about that. You want impact? Well, what I'm doing here, very simple. Not that impactful. Impact is something else. You can do much more. That's why when Umar got upset, what is this? We're going for Umrah. Recite Surah Al-Kahf or something. No, he said poetry. And the Prophet told him, be quiet, let him say poetry. This is what's going to stick. And it did. I'm not a very good memorizer of poetry, but those 3 verses of poetry that he said lived on for years and years and years. And people felt attached to it and felt proud of being a part of when that was said. The Prophet ﷺ finishes his Umrah, and then he decides to extend another olive branch. So he brings food, and he offers Quraysh a feast. And he calls Quraysh, come and eat. Come, let's eat together. Let's break this bad blood. Let's eat together. So he told them, eat your food and leave. We don't need it. خُذْ طَعَامَكَ وَخْرُجْ فَلَا حَاجَةَ لَنَا إِلَيْهِ. We don't need this food. Leave this place. The person who was speaking to the Prophet was very rude, telling him, leave our land. He was using that word, leave our land. So one of the Sahaba, who's not even from Quraysh, is Ansari, Khazraji, he said, تقول له اخرج من أرضك. You're telling him leave your land. هذه أرضه. This is his land. وأرض أبيه وجده وجد جده. This is the land of him and his father and his grandfather and his great grandfather. The Prophet ﷺ was born in Mecca, and every single forefather, every grandparent, until Ismail were all born in Mecca. Understand? You don't have that. You don't understand. No, you don't. Because you don't have that ownership yet. You've never, like, you don't come from a background where you and every single person that you descend from were born in the exact same piece of land. Or maybe you do when you're here because something happened. But the Prophet ﷺ was removed from Mecca. Every ancestor was born there. And he's being told by this guy, leave my land. And the Prophet ﷺ is way too kind to say anything, so the guy's yelling at him, he's listening to it. But the Sahabi got upset, and he said, you're telling him your land. This is the land of Rasulullah. You should leave, he should stay. So the Sahabi got a little bit aggressive towards the other guy. So the Prophet ﷺ would say this, I love this. So he said, he would turn to the Sahabi, and he would say, لا تؤذي من زارنا في ديارنا. Don't harm the person who's visiting me in my land. Don't harm my guest. You're saying it's my land? Don't harm my guest, please. So the Sahabi calmed down. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yes. Okay, good. Perfect. Okay, so we'll end here then. Great. So we're going to have tonight, inshallah, a kahoot for the younger group, inshallah. So the kahoots that will run. Hold your horses. So what's going to happen is over the next maybe a couple of weeks, maybe not every week, but every second or third week, we'll have a short kahoot at the end of each Seerah Halaqah that will ask questions about the week before or maybe the 2 weeks that were occurred. So that maybe the younger groups, younger brothers and sisters who are listening have a chance maybe to answer some questions and maybe get a small prize. Don't worry, nothing big, yani, just maybe a Mercedes-Benz and a private jet. Nothing big, nothing that you're really going to need to fight for. So we'll end with that, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, is this still wording? Yeah, so we'll stop there. This is the end of the treaty of Alhudaybiyah and every aspect of the story regarding it. Next week we start with a new, we enter, is it still working or no? That's fine. So next week, inshallah, we enter a different chapter of the Prophet ﷺ's life, and we'll start talking about... Is it not working? Khalas? Yeah.
You want to ask the question? Or no, you want to tell them at the end if it's right or wrong?
Yeah, sure, I'm here. I can do that. Yeah. You're going to do it? No, I don't want to do it.
What am I saying? Sheikh, what am I doing? Muhammad Fahd, you want to do this?
No, go for it. It's right here, man.
What do I say?
Do you want me to cast the Kahoot?
Yeah, cast the Kahoot.
Okay.
Wait, so how does it work? Doesn't it automatically, the questions already up there?
Yeah, but
We're going to cast the Kahoot first, and then I'll just MC, what did I say in MC?
Yeah, I'm casting. Let me know what it look like.
There's no Wi-Fi password.
Go down.
The Wi-Fi and then you can go. Muslim.
That's good.
It's an open network. Muslim.
No, wait, scroll up.
About the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
It's good?
Yeah. Wait, zoom out a little. Alright, so for those who need Wi-Fi, there's free Wi-Fi available. If you just go on your Wi-Fi settings, it's called Muslim Wellness. You can enjoy free Wi-Fi. And then once you get free Wi-Fi, that is the game code right up there. So you can put it in on just kahoot.it, scan, or you can scan the QR code and it'll get you into the Kahoot, hopefully, inshallah. Yo, move, zoom out. Zoom out. That's good enough, yeah. Yo, this is so random. So inshallah, you can also just scan the QR code on the top and it'll get you into the game, inshallah. For those who can't see, the code is 6212572. That's definitely Ali.
Why not?
We good to go?
Can you see the questions? I don't know the questions.
What do you mean? They're gonna come in.
Yeah,
Don't
but I
worry.
have to read them.
Huh?
I have to read the questions right now.
Yeah, they're gonna show up.
What if I can't pronounce the word?
Yeah, Allah.
So no Google and no cheating, eh? So don't Google any of the questions and don't cheat.
Also, please
It's an Islamic one, so don't cheat. Go ahead.
Sorry. Also, please put your name in so we know who the winner is. Unless you know you're not gonna win, then you can put whatever name. But if you want to compete for the prize, inshallah, just put your name in here so you can see the leaderboard and who's first place, inshallah. Are you gonna explain the answers? The questions? Or are you just gonna let it flow?
Let it flow. If needed, I'll chime in if needed.
I don't even know the questions. It was just so last minute. Inshallah.
Thank you for doing it. Appreciate it.
Inshallah, we'll do this every week on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I'll just
Next
call-
week, I'll hopefully we'll be met by then, and I'll announce that we're going to have like a nice session with you guys. I think this is the session that you guys should definitely talk to.
We can do Monday, Tuesday, and
Yeah, we're going to do all three, inshallah. But this one here will be very
if you
meaningful.
want, we can start from like next week, like next Saturday.
Let's give it a bit of time. Let's build it up nicely. Why don't you guys take some time to build it, and maybe rehearse the work, and then get everyone involved. Like everyone should say
of course.
something.
Everyone that came with the
Even
Umrah trip.
Everyone who was there should stand up and say something.
He's gonna be the MC.
Everyone should get involved. I want everyone who was there to kind of be a
We'll all
part.
get
And I
up.
want to incorporate some of the stuff that Umar Ghadban and Muhammad Ghadban had their Umrah.
already talked to them, yes.
Because they did their Umrah as well. If we put it all together, you have a nice, I don't know, I think it would be fun.
I already talked to them. We're gonna get it.
Okay, what are we waiting
Is everyone in? Do we need more time?
So there may be a limit to how many people this thing takes. So if it's limited and it's not allowing you in, then that's the case, and we can't do anything about it. So we'll just move forward, inshallah, with the.
Inshallah. Okay. Can we get the first question?
Yeah.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Question number 1. How did the Prophet ﷺ come up? Yo, Muhammad, move that down. The question is, how did he come up with the idea of Umrah? Zoom out, zoom out. Zoom out, zoom out. Beautiful. So it was a dream. Muhammad, next question. Can we get a next question, please? Osman is in the lead. All right, next question, please.
This is better? Want to switch? Speak into it.
That's the next question. All right, next question is true or false? Did the Prophet capture the people and did he keep them as prisoners? True or false? So did he keep the people that he captured as prisoners or did he let them be free? All right, that is true. He did not capture anyone. He let them all be free. All right, that's 2 for 5. Oh, Osman is still in the lead. Ali is in second, and Umar is right behind them. All right, question number 3. How long did the truce and the Treaty of Hudaybiyah last? How long did it last? So you got either 2 years, 3, 10, or 7. All right, one more person. No? Yeah, so it was. All right. Oh, Umar came back in the lead. Umar is in the lead. All righty. Who was responsible for writing the treaty? So the question is, who was responsible for writing the treaty? You got 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's do the answer. So it was Ali, and it was a nice split from 10 and 9, so it was close. And Osman is back in the lead, and Ali is second place. Close leaderboard. All right. Was the phrase Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim erased from the treaty? True or false? Yeah, that was quick. It was true. Everyone knew that. All right, then. All right, let's see who was third place, second place, and who was first. Oh, Osman is first. All right, if Osman can come to the front, and he'll get Osman, he'll get his reward. Are you Osman? Not nothing for you. Congratulations, brother. This is for you. We'll give it to Ati. Go give it to Ali. All right, inshallah. Thank you everyone for participating. Inshallah, we'll have these on a weekly basis. Next week, it will be about this week's Seerah Halaqah, and it'll be on just a weekly basis, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.